Well, after the mistake that was watching a Matt Powell video, I thought I'd shift gears a bit and that we'd finish, or at least attempt to finish, the little mini series I've been doing on Carl Baugh's Creation and Symphony. Um, but something hit me when I was queuing up the playlist earlier that the actual Creation and Symphony series is like 5 and some odd hours, and this is just part one, the model. So I am now at the fourth video part of what is only a look back at only a segment of a full on thing. So I'm obviously going to have to rethink how I go about these Carl Baugh videos. But yeah, we're going to jump right into it. Let's just cue things up here, and oh look, we've got internet. It's working. It's working. All right, let's get to the master of word salad.
Now we come to the flood. The flood was a literal occurrence. Geologic strata indicate sedimentary deposits on a global basis.
Geologic strata. I barely know a. God, that was terrible. But strata. I mean, I know I have a weird way of saying stuff, but come on, Carl.
There's a layer of limestone beginning in central Texas, extending 1,600 miles to the eastern seaboard of the United States, picks up again at the White Cliffs of Dover in Europe, extend all the way down to northern Africa and Ethiopia. Thus, we have three continents involved in sedimentary deposits. That means that at one time they were all together and the sedimentary deposits had collected. This means that there was a global flood. What?
No. That's quite the leap there, Carl. See, I love this. I can laugh about Carl Baugh, but Matt Powell just angries up the blood. I don't need any of that.
What was the causative factor of the global flood? What caused the flood? Now, the scripture gives us an indication. In the 600th year of Noah's life, second month, 17th day of the month, three things happened in this order. Number one, the fountains of the great deep were broken up.
Yes, these fountains of the deep that totally don't exist and that we cannot even see a location where they would have been. I mean, I guess if you know, do some mental gymnastics, you can come up with a solution. But
Remember, in the perfectly balanced and orchestrated internal area of the Earth, you had the nuclear reactors, moderating, insulating areas, and then the swaddling band, the great Tehum, the crust of the Earth, and then the sands and the clays and the plants.
I can't get over him and nuclear reactors. Oh, Carl. None of those words mean what you think they mean.
The scripture states that in that single day, three things happened in the life of Noah. During his life, on that day, three things happened to the globe. Number one, the fountains.
Yes, we get it. Ugh, word salad.
Fountains of the great deep were broken up. Number two, the windows of heaven were opened. Number three, it began to rain.
That looks more like a steam vent, Carl. That's not a cloud, which wouldn't even be what the fountains of heaven would be. It'd be like waterfall. Do you even know your own art? What are you pointing to, bro?
We have this visualized on the chart. We have a mechanism suggested. Once the waters are churned and heated.
Look at that citation down there. Microwaves are unique. Thomas Clink, microwave oven. Popular Mechanics, September 1989. What the hell is he on about?
They are encapsulated, of course, in this design terrasphere, internal structure of the Earth. Once you add heat,
He's got some freaking Amiga wallpaper of arrows and droplets. Microwave activity on water. Oh man. Now remember why I like this. I mean, I don't, but I do. Because it's just so absurd.
heat, you add pressure. That pressure adds more heat, which adds more pressure. Soon, something has to give. Simultaneous with the rupture of the fountains of the great deep, you have the internal structure of the earth being disturbed. Now, what disturbed that structure? I must admit, in this tentative model, I do not know precisely.
You know, I was thinking that Noob Fire. I'm like, man, he seems to know exactly when this happened. You know, I get bored at the begets, but you know what I know of the story, that didn't get that precise.
But I do know that the scriptures state that the earth was filled with violence. We've examined the fact that the mind of man can actually influence radioactive decay.
I forgot about that. Yeah, this man thinks we can just manifest decay rates. Yeah, that really helps with it really helped with the people in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, with the people who got the fallout from Castle Bravo and Lucky Dragon 7. Um, you know, the people in SL1, if the steam explosion hadn't have done what it did, um, the whole entire region of Chernobyl. Let's just go there and manifest the radiation away. Sure, that'll work.
I suggest a direct correlation. God said He's bringing about a
I suggest you've been smoking something, Carl. Save us some.
flood, but the Bible says that the violence was caused by man. That invokes a divine principle, Galatians 6, 7, and 8. Be not deceived, God is not mocked.
Oh no, I seem to do a pretty good job mocking them.
Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. He that soweth to the flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. He that soweth to
And yet, for some reason, you hedonistic preachers seem to just love money and power and success, and you continue to get more of it, and only when you mess up does any punishment befall you, rather than some divine barrier being reached that prevents you from succeeding in this material life that's supposed to be worthless. Just a constant pattern, I notice. Almost as if there's no external force acting on anything at all.
the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. There's a divine cause and effect relationship that God sets in motion. God set it in motion. It's extended to all the cosmos. In outer space, you have cause and effect. In our own internal structures and struggles, we have cause and effect. In the biological world, in the physical world, you have cause and effect. Therefore,
All right there, William Lane Craig.
it is consistent that God set in motion principles, but we introduced chaos. Therefore,
Laura, pleasure to see you. Yeah, let me know what you find on that subject of when did of like precise dates for or ages for when the flood happened.
we reap the results. That means that while God set the principles in motion that eventuated in the flood, we, by our disturbance and internal discord, projected in the very thought process, when the very imagination of the heart of man was only evil continually.
So you're blaming the victim here. Good job, Carl. Really living up to the no hate like Christian love right there.
We caused the violence that disrupted the earth and caused the flood.
Yes, and when the violence causes silence, who are we mistaken? And you see, it's not me, it's not my family in your head. Their tanks and their bombs and their guns. I know y'all get the reference.
Watch closely. The fountains of the great deep were broken up. When that occurs, some of our researchers have put this model into the computer and have found that if you rip the granite crust of the earth with these steamy hot...
Bro, we got straight bootleg PS1 renders right here. Hell yeah. Oh man, let's watch that again. That was great.
When that occurs,
that rock just flies out like wee.
Researchers have put this model into the computer and have found that if you rip the granite crust of the earth with the steamy hot waters, the pressure, velocity, and temperature combined to send a jet of water 70 miles high. Remember, the firmamental canopy was only 10 miles above the earth. That canopy was of a crystalline structure, which means...
Oh yeah, let's not forget Carl's belief that the canopy wasn't just like a crystalline ice canopy, but that it was like metallic hydrogen. Not actual metallic hydrogen, but him thinking of hydrogen behaving like steel that just floated up there and was transparent. I mean, this stuff is insane. Man. If one died to Christianity, I'd find it interesting, you know, from a fiction standpoint.
Means that it could not be dissipated except by thermal energies. Thus, we have the steamy hot waters being thrown against the canopy, and in a very short time, because of the thermal moderation, ripping a channel window into that canopy.
Wow, it sounds just like that accident we had when I worked at McDonald's. Steamy hot waters ripping through a thermal canopy. Disaster, cataclysmic. Huh. I wonder. Actually, no, I never had anything like that happen, although I did work at McDonald's for a very short period. Then I told them to fuck off.
Causing its collapse, and it collapses as rain. Watch the sequence again. In the 600th year of Noah's life, second...
Steamy hot lunar bukkake. Tubian with the facts.
Month, 17th day of the month, three things happened. The fountains of the great deep were broken up. This sends jets of hot water.
Oh yeah, roll that beautiful 4 frame a second rendering.
Windows of heaven were open. It began to rain. Rain 40 days and nights. Subsequent to, and as a part of this, the fountains of the great deep continued.
It's freaking mist!
To expunge their material, magmatic material, and violent waters for 150 days. Thus you have a crimping of the crust of the earth. Then you have a buildup of the waters on the earth. Fortunately, in the ark, there's place for safety.
The water physics you're seeing here probably took days to render on a SGI workstation. It's terrifying to think.
Now, as those waters are building up, and as the moon overhead, we've done this as a result, we've shown this schematic design as a result of the work of Professor M.E. Clark and Professor Henry Voss. Because of the gravitational effect of the moon, bringing these global waters into resonance twice a day, you have a bulging of the waters of the flood. This also causes the sedimentary deposits to form into systematic sedimentary layering. So,
yes, layers that would in no way match the actual geologic strata.
Together, the creation and symphony model meets a very specific design. That means that we can account for the global flood, the loss of the canopy, we can account for the sedimentary deposits. There's
the only one of those three things you said that are real are sedimentary deposits, and again, not in the way you even describe. That's not how the geology of the Earth actually is.
There's a major factor involved called liquefaction. Watch closely, class. As these tidal waters, global floods, bulge twice a day, once on this side of the globe, once on the opposite side of the globe simultaneously, bringing the waters into resonance so that they give up much of the emulsified sedimentary material that has been expunged into them from the fountains of the great deep.
Sorry, I'm a little delayed on this. I got a notification on my phone that distracted me. I just want to point out that emulsification, emulsion, that word group is fun to me. You know, there's words I like, words I don't like, and I got to say what up to the words I like. Boy, that sounded weird. Welcome to Memphis, I guess. That's actually kind of the way we talk around here, especially if you're my goofy self.
And you have the systematic layering. Living forms have been trapped in and caught in and destroyed by this tsunamic global tragedy.
This tsunamic global tragedy. Is that the new Panic at the Disco single?
Their bodies are held encapsulated. Thus, they begin to fossilize almost immediately. Fossilization means there has to be an immediate covering of material around and over these living systems. While that occurs, as the crest passes twice a day, it leaves a trough of water. Therefore, you have a lessening of the pressure. But 12 hours later, you'll have a tidal bulge again, increasing the pressure inside those sedimentary layers. That's called liquefaction. That explains the dispersion of fossils. I personally have had the privilege of discovering 2 major dinosaurs.
I don't have comment. This is just this is just gold.
The largest Acrocanthosaurus that's been found to date, and the largest Stegosaurus stenops that's been found to date. On each occasion, there was sedimentary deposition, sedimentary layering, and on each occasion there was a distribution of these bones. They were not perfectly articulated together, they were distributed. Now,
just as any kind of conventional geologic process over the known millions upon millions of years have existed for would account for. Just because your weird little model can account for some random trait that's seen doesn't mean actually what happened. Creationist things where they're like, just because we have something that says it can handle it or an answer, that must mean it's right. Hence why they always peg on like extreme ends of, you know, physics and stuff. Like, well, it wasn't God, what created the universe? Just like, it's a nonsensical question. And I don't really care about the explicit origins thereof. Also, this is disturbing. If you look in the middle of the shadow, I know y'all can't see my mouse cursor, but the middle of the shadow caused by the rock up top. If you move down from 8 and an eye, a nose. It's really creepy.
The global flood accounts for that liquefaction distribution as you have a tidal crest and a trough every 12 hours, changing the water pressure, and there's a tendency in liquefaction for the pressure that is drained out to return and adjacent to harder material in the sediment to push the water in horizontal layering. That feathers out the fossils in the fossil record. It's all systematic, but watch closely. That accounts for the sedimentary layering. That accounts for the internal disturbance. That means that we have great plumes.
Oh, you can see the mouse cursor. Cool. I didn't know. I thought it actually hit it. Sweet. I'll keep that in mind.
From inside the earth, depositing tremendous.
Like, no joke. I could have sworn that for some reason or another it didn't show the mouse cursor when the screen sharing was active.
Tremendous amounts of internal radioactive material. Have the eternal, those great Cretaceous plume explosions, you have great catastrophic life and termination of many of the life. All of that's consistent with the note that the entire panel layering, the disruption in the internal structure, and then the continuing cost of that canopy took 40 days and nights for that to rain down. But we lost of major proportion. The perfect orchestration of the heavens, lending their vibratory music and influence in mid-spectral and long-wave.
Oh yes, the planets in the universe sang to us. So we had like a cosmic muzak system going 24/7. It's so wild. You kind of got to love it.
Radiation brought in benefits. And simultaneously, the shortwave radiation was assimilated into the structure of this firmament, which means that it continued to re-energize and replace the energy of the Earth.
How's it going now? Because it did give me an issue with things. With things like saying, "Hey, you're losing connection here." We having Kelvin issues. I don't think we're having Kelvin issues. Let me know while I share this on Discord, because I need some more people in here. Let's just do it from the phone since the computer's acting up.
Earth's magnetic field. As we living systems use that energy, it was replaced by the short-wave radiation from outer space. A perfect balance was there. Now, at the time of the flood, we've lost our canopy. The electromagnetic charged, but it begins to decay. Scientific research shows that it has continued to decay exponentially.
Hopefully you didn't miss much anything. Him talking about the magical cosmic muzak that we had, and talking about the Earth lost this and lost that. So it is what it is.
That means for a few hundred years after the flood, you could still pick up some of the tones of the music in heaven from the heavens. That means you would still have a lot more atmospheric pressure. That means man could still live for a considerable time. You still had a denser atmosphere. However, a couple of hundred years after the flood, this internal disturbed nuclear reactor went into a Chernobyl mode, and the Earth...
He actually brought it up. He's actually referencing Chernobyl. Mr. Baugh, the nuclear processes inside of the Earth are not only in no way, shape, or form what you think they are, or the way you think they are, but are absolutely 100% not those of an RBMK reactor. They're just not. So making a Chernobyl comparison is even more ridiculous than most people out there would think it already is. Just... I feel like there's something else I should say here, but what do? I'm arguing with a 35 plus year, 35-year-old video. It's like, what's there to say?
The Earth was enlarged and expanded. We call that the Peleg experience or episode. But I want to emphasize a major point. In Psalm 104, the scripture states that God stretched out the heavens. In Genesis 2:1, it states the heavens and the earth were finished. We have it inferred by that God had continued to stretch out the fabric of space until the week of creation was complete. Thus the heavens, in perfect symmetry, were stretched out, but then the stretching terminated. However, in the book of Psalm 18 and in 2 Samuel chapter 22, we find awesome passages which are corollary to Psalm 77. And it states there that at the time of the flood, God shook the earth, and the earth trembled. Now, the only plausible scientific corollary to the trembling of an entire globe is internal thermonuclear disruption.
Carl, you understand that what you just said is that, and I mean this precisely, is that a hydrogen bomb detonated inside the Earth. Explaining it in a way you'd understand. That is to say that an explosive device using a fission reaction as the primary with a fusion-based secondary or tertiary stage, usually of deuterium or tritium, but other similar elements, potentially lithium mixed in, depending on the particular origins and design of this nuclear weapon, was detonated inside of the center of the Earth and caused it to tremble. Because that is what thermonuclear means. Also, since you made a Chernobyl comparison earlier, Chernobyl was not a thermonuclear explosion. It wasn't even a nuclear explosion. It was a steam explosion caused by a runaway effect in the RBMK reactor. Primarily, if memory serves, the southwest side, part of the reactor. Which is neither here nor there. It's just interesting when you get into the nitty-gritty on where exactly things went the worst, the quickest. I know this is just for the average person to understand his crazy ideas, and he doesn't understand it any much better than any average person hearing the words he's come up with. But this kind of just gross throwing around of these nuclear subjects, y'all know it gets to me. It hadn't pissed me off. Not like hearing Matt Powell open his damn mouth. I expect better, and I'm thoroughly disappointed. At least even Kent Hovind knows to shut his mouth when it comes to this stuff.
But with internal thermonuclear disruption, we can certainly envision how the entire earth would tremble. And the scripture states in Psalm 18 and in 2 Samuel chapter 22 that at that time the heavens were shaken and the foundations of heaven were shaken. We assume the foundations of a heaven would be the
shaken, not stirred,
nearer stellar bodies, the planets and the sun, our solar system. And it states there that God bowed the heavens. The words in the original language there are matash and a corollary word which have to do, nata, both having to do with stretching of the heavens like he did earlier. There is astronomical evidence that one of the planets, Ceres or Phaethon, called Olympus by some of the ancients, that one of the planets actually was disrupted to the point that it fragmented. And we get some inclinations as to the size and mass. The fragments in the asteroid belt are made of heavy metals, which indicate that originally that came from a much larger planet.
No. It's bass backwards. material in the asteroid belt could have coalesced into a relatively small but still reasonable planet, but it didn't due to a multitude of factors. If it was excuse me, a destroyed planet, it would have different properties. It's just not how it works. Sorry, choking on, not choking on something, but that's some caught in my throat.
You amass all of the asteroids, and they give you a mass
Not gonna lie, this stream's a damn train wreck.
about 1/10 of that of our moon. But the moon is not sufficiently large in mass and gravity to introduce those.
Yep, you've been missing Baugh, you missed my stream glitching out like Hovens does, and you just missed me halfway choking on literally nothing. Just having one of those moments. So it's been an eventful stream.
Or incorporate those heavy elements that were in Phaethon now being in the asteroid belt. We can readily see as the Earth shakes, modern astrophysicists have taken into account quantum mechanics and quantum physics, where gravity waves of a shaking area central to a universe would affect everything else in a universe. Thus, when the Scripture states in Job 15:5 that the heavens are not now pure in God's sight, that means that literally the heavens are distorted to some degree. That means the harmony.
Just like your interpretation of the Bible.
In that scale of the planets is distorted to some degree. There is a symmetry, a proportional symmetry to the spacing of the planets until you get to the gap between Mars and Jupiter. You have the asteroid belt between those. It's assumed that Phaethon originally was in that area. That would give again an harmonic relationship. And with God stretching those out again out of mercy, we find a disturbance in the heavens. I emphasize mercy. Both 2 Samuel
Wow, okay.
22 and Psalm 18 begin with an emphasis on mercy. Thus we have mercy extended to man and all the living systems, because with the heavens being closer, that would mean that the disturbed, distorted shortwave radiation would have a greater potential to destroy living systems. We're now being destroyed incrementally by shortwave radiation.
No, Carl. We're not. Shortwave is non-ionizing. What are you even talking about?
But the debris that we pick up in space and the distortion in space is a result of that disturbance as the Earth was shaken in this model, and is a result of God stretching out the heavens. That solves a major problem. Astrophysicists today,
You can solve a whole lot of problems if you just make shit up.
interpret stellar bodies as being 15 to 20 billion light years away, some of those stellar bodies. It's possible that they are those distances. Not because the universe and the earth are 15 to 20 billion years old, but simply because during the first week of creation, God stretched out the heavens, thus maturing the perfect heavens. But at the time of the flood, because all of the physical universe, to some degree, being closer in proximity, was affected by the disturbance going on planet Earth, then God stretched out those contaminated heavens, and in stretching them out, the distortions would mature and exaggerate. That does not mean that the universe is 20 billion years old, but it might mean that if you traveled at the speed of light to the farthest edges of the universe, it would take you 20 billion years to get there at the speed of light.
Carl, that's not how relativistic velocities work. At the age of the universe, and that number was already outdated at the time you would have made this. What else? Oh yeah, any idea of stretching out the heavens in the way you ascribe as happening would not result in the universe appearing the way that it does to us. Um, Succession velocities are constant slash accelerating, but on a constant curve. Um, This is your typical creationist stuff. I mean, you think the fact they have to constantly. This is my whole thing with apologetics. The fact that you even have to have apologetics for religious stuff alone should tell you it's bullshit. You got to make up stuff and come up with excuses for everything. Um, and don't get me started on the fact that while the roots may not be related, that the concept of an apology and apologetics that there's a similar, similar sounding roots in there. I've never looked into it far enough to give a damn because I don't give a damn, but it seems like an almost admission of stuff. But that's neither here nor there. But again, you're just ad hocing whatever you can to suit your narrative, when reality it begs to differ. Um, Muslim apologists are really big on this whole science in the Quran thing. And they do the same logic where any fact about the universe, they'll immediately try to latch some Quranic verse onto it very tacitly in some cases. Does that make them right? You'd sure reject their evidence. So what makes you think we should accept your evidence in quotes on this?
But it actually means that all of the creation, even its current disturbance, discord, disharmony, are accounted for in the creation model. In a companion video series of lectures, Creation and Symphony, the Evidence, I refer to the interrelationship of these beautifully orchestrated living systems and the planet. I suggest you get that series, 6 lectures, 6 hours, 3 tapes, Creation and Symphony, the Evidence. In this series of lectures, Creation and Symphony, the Model, we account for the distribution of sedimentary deposits and the distribution of chaos in the internal structure of the earth. In the companion series, we actually include photographs we took as we flew Mount Ararat, photographs of portions of Noah's Ark. I suggest you get that companion series.
Was that giant dog turd we saw in Noah's Ark? Hang on, let's go back. Is that it? Is that the Ark?
Photographs of portions of Noah's
Oh man, this fucking Noah's Ark is so. I just always laughed at this stuff because it's so desperately trying to prove their fairy tales. Just every time. It's like children trying to convince you their imaginary friend is real.
Ark. I suggest you get that companion series.
Yes, for $99.95 on VHS. It's only 12 tapes. We could have kept it down to 2, but Carl Ball likes to ramble on forever because he's a fucking idiot who doesn't know how to form a cognizant sentence. I should know. I'm an expert on forming garbage sentences.
Now we're accounting for the disturbance, internal and surface and celestial, of all the creation. Studies in chaos theory within recent years has accounted for an effect, an avalanche effect, indicating that shock waves internal to the structure of the earth, shock waves emanating from one single area, could actually disturb the internal balance of the nuclear reactor. And I suggest that that has occurred. We do have an internal structure of the earth that is violently disturbed. At the time of the flood, this occurred in the creation model. A little over 200 years from the flood.
Did you know there's two really large, relatively hard masses in the Earth? Like we're talking huge. I forget exactly what they call them. Let me look that up real quick. Are they? Yeah, the large, low velocity provinces, LLVPs, essentially continent-sized blobs of unusual material deep within the Earth's mantle. Um, Pretty two big ones. They're just there. What's up with them? But they're there. I don't know. I'm just talking about the Earth being things, and I'm like, wow, that's some weird shit.
Flood, Peleg lived.
Onward to the next part. If the playlist actually there goes. The peg leg. Yeah, peg leg. I know it's Peleg.
A little over 200 years from the flood, Peleg lived. During the life of one
And yes, this is incredibly loud.
man, we have the Peleg episode. You will find reference to him primarily in Genesis chapter 10, verse 25. In that portion of Scripture, it states that during the days of Peleg, indicating during the bulk of the lifespan of this man, the earth was divided. And the very nature of the word Peleg means to divide by streaming, and the implication is streaming by water.
Oh, so back in those days that they fought over Netflix and Hulu over the oceans. And it was the streaming wars. God, that joke was lame. All my jokes are lame. But at least they come from the heart as opposed to Hoven's jokes was come right of his ass. Come right out of his ass. Oh man, I don't have the energy for this. Let's continue.
Thus, we now account for the expansion of the globe. Geophysicists and paleontologists admit readily that...
Wait. Expansion of the globe. Are you an inflationist Earth proponent? Carl. Come on.
The time in the past when the dinosaurs lived was a time when the dimensions of the globe were smaller. The diameter of the globe was at least 15% smaller than it is today.
What? The fuck? I was just being funny earlier. This man actually believes in an inflationary Earth. What the fuck? You understand how big 15% is, Carl? How drastic a change that is.
Watch closely. A Chernobyl disruption inside the Earth.
Oh god, and there he is, back to Chernobyl. Chernobyl was not what you think it is. Nuclear reactors are not what you think they are. The Earth is not a nuclear reactor in the same way as anything else like that. Chernobyl was not thermonuclear. Those things are not thermonuclear. Chernobyl was a steam explosion. The Earth was not 15% smaller. You are insane, Carl. Holy crap, I did not see this coming. Speaking of things I also didn't see coming, were some super chats from Rosina, $4.99. Two blobs of the Earth are remnants of Thea. Google first subduction event for the paper. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I had figured they were. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. And super chat from $9.99 from Laura, giving me info on apologetics. Apologetics comes from Greek apologias, spell that wrong in Greek, oops, which means to give a defense. English word apologize does come from this, but they're not the same. Okay, so they do have a same root. So okay. I feel like that is telling, but at the same rate isn't. But it may just simply be a matter of coincidence on how modern usage has gone and the fact that their usage of the concept or their creation of the construct of apologetics in the modern sense happens to be defending BS. So, okay. Thanks for that refresher. I always appreciate that. I just can't get over the 15% smaller thing. Whew.
Eventuates from a Chernobyl disruption runaway reaction. If you look at terrascapes of the structure of the mass of the surface at the bottom of the ocean, you will find a major disruption area emanating from a rather central point. You'll find areas of...
No. You can see the plates moving, you can see the subduction zones, and you can see the emergence zones, like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. I would love to get paid to just make shit up all the time. It must be great.
Movement with great mountain building near the surface, indicating that magmatic intrusion occurred here. We have had these lines follow the western side of the United States, generating the great area of the Rockies. And subduction would occur under this great tectonic plate, and a trailing effect would occur, which would explain the trailing of the islands in this part of the world. This would occur in some proportion worldwide as the globe expanded. You will find actually a part of India being rammed from a southern hemisphere, and disturbance in the African continent.
Bro points at India. India isn't even on your damn globe. You Western-centric person of unlikableness.
Disturbance in the European area. But this also introduces another explanation. Since the waters of the earth would be much hotter than ambient temperature, and hotter than they had been prior to the disturbance at the time of the flood, you have a thermal balance which is absolutely necessary. So you have these hotter waters elevating, and because of an extreme variation in temperature, you get an ice buildup, particularly at the poles.
Carl, you were pointing at the sky the whole time. Are you telling me hot waters were in the sky and that made cold? What? You like to use a lot of words. Could you maybe use the correct ones in the correct order that actually explain what the hell you're talking about?
Where these waters could be shunted in crystalline ice form with an ice buildup. Thus, the ice ages do not express tens of thousands of years, but only a few hundreds of years in scope, and you have them intruding all the way into northern and central Europe.
So, hot water floated in the sky and made ice water at the poles, and so that means they can only be a few hundred years and not the thousands of years. What? What? Someone translate this in English for me? 'Cause I don't know what language this man's speaking, but it's not anything that I can understand. I don't think it's anything anyone can understand.
You have them in the northern and even the central United States. Ice build up from the North Pole, and of course you have the same thing occurring at South Pole. You have a simultaneous effect that must be accounted for. Since we have lost the mechanism to keep the Earth's magnetic field charged, you have a loosening of the field. Anytime you have a strengthening of the field, it pinches those lines of electromagnetic energy. But here we have a gentle limbering or loosening of those fields. Now they actually extend out 40,000 miles into space. Every time there's a major sunspot activity, giving an increase of energy absorption, they are pinched closer to the Earth. This would certainly indicate that a time in the past, since we're losing these...
I'm sorry, I wish y'all could see me. This is points where me having a cam actually would be nice, but I'm just standing here, jaw agape, just being like, what the hell is this man on?
Lines of energy, flux lines exponentially. At a time in the past when they were stronger, they were pinched closer. Thus, the entire creation and symphony model is consistent. When those lines were closer, the canopy was closer. We have another effect occurring. With the bulging...
You know, When ICP asked magnets how do they work, Carl must have been the one to write that line because he seems to not understand how magnetic fields work. Oh wait, I forgot. Xena here said it perfectly. This guy knows nothing about anything. He's speaking idiot, and I'm not fluent in that anymore. Yeah, seriously.
or expansion of the globe, the universal law of gravitation is applied in a negative dimension. That is, prior
This broke me. Dude, seriously trying to say because of some magnetic line crap that there was negative gravity. Carl, what the fuck? I thought you were smarter than this. Kent is smarter than you. And that's pretty damn pathetic. I mean, I would be like, do you still believe this? Is this still something you're touting? But this is from his channel. This is from the Creation Evidence Museum. This is legit.
to this expansion, you had greater gravitational attraction if you maintain the same mass but shrink the volume. Now you maintain the same mass and enlarge the volume, and on the surface you have less gravitational attraction, which means that now...
No, that's not how gravity works. That is in no way, shape, or form how gravity works. For those who didn't catch that, this man just said changing the volume of something will affect the gravitational pull it has. No. It's an interesting thought experiment. If the Earth were to be shrunk to a singularity, into a black hole, immediately, the pull of gravity on us would be the same. The International Space Station would orbit as it has. The moon would orbit as it has. Because all that matters is the mass and your relative position to it, affecting how its gravity is going to affect you. You know, compared with your velocity and all that complex ass calculus and stuff. You know, if the sun were to just be squeezed into a black hole by some weird process, we'd still orbit the same way we do. Because the mass would be the same. So the gravitational pull would be the same. However, you could now get way closer to it and get an extreme case of gravitational, not even lensing, but a process known as spaghettification, as the gradient of effects of gravity changes as you get closer to said singularity. So really small, really dense objects, not cool to get near. So supermassive black holes you can hang around all the time, but we're not here to talk about black holes. It's just that's always my go-to for understanding, like, all that matters is the mass. Carl, you don't understand physics that I understood in 4th grade. And I remember this because a substitute teacher we had, for some reason gravity was a concept that got brought up, had was trying to was doing her best teaching it, and had thought about what would happen if you went to the center of the earth. And she was like, well, all the gravity's there, so you'd be crushed. And I'm thinking, no, if you could hang out at the exact center of the earth, you'd just kind of float there because all of the planet's masses around you pulling you equally. And later on, I would talk to the actual teacher, and yeah, it's verified. Like, yeah, you're right, Chris. This was when I was 9. You know, I was the weird kid growing up. Surprise, right? So I really would recluse myself into what scientific materials I could get a hold of and study this stuff and actually care about it. So when I see people like Carl Baugh here just rambling off what the fuck ever, looking like some kind of authority, and they don't know shit. When you've got Kent Hovind and his fake doctorates, putting doctor in front of everything, trying to make himself seem like an authority, it just really fucking pisses me off at a fundamental level. I thought I wouldn't get pissed off in this stream. I already got pissed to the Matt Powell stream because he's just a jerk ass. And here we are. Carl Baugh's done pissed me off. Might as well do a Hovind stream after this and go for the trifecta. Spend my whole damn Sunday just annoyed by stupid people. Actually, it wouldn't be different from most days. But that's neither here nor there. At least to have you, my lovely audience. Y'all are awesome. All right, remembered that I do this for y'all. Let's keep going.
The atmospheric pressure is lost slowly during the life of one man. If you'll examine the record, you'll notice that from that point on, there's an incremental decrease in lifespan. Noah lived another 350 years after the flood. During the first 200 or 300 years, the Earth's
Phantom X points out if you increase volume, you're further from the center of gravity when you are in the surface. Yeah, but it's the effect is so relatively minimal at you need to be at very large scales to have much of an effect. So being at the surface of the planet, it would be effectively the same. I mean, not any measurable differences, majorly measurable, I'd say.
Dimensions and diameter would have been closer. You still would have a shielding from the basic radiation. But now you're getting less shielding.
And now the overall gravitational pull of the mass would be identical. Your position in relation to the distribution of the mass would be different, but the overall pull is the same. X amount of matter is going to pull at X rate. Gravity is a constant.
You now have less atmospheric pressure. This brings us to our current globe.
And as for the less gravitational pull at the equator, that's more to do with your rotational velocity at that point than anything else. That little bit of a density difference doesn't affect things much. It's rotational velocity.
And this is a globe in decay. We are still experiencing the Peleg globe, loss of magnetic field at an exponential decay rate, loss of atmospheric pressure. Now we are consuming, because of industrialization, more of the oxygen ratio. Watch closely. Prior to the
Do you have to go to a course to learn how to talk this ridiculously? Now we are consuming, because of industrialization, more of the oxygen ratio. Carl, are you a proponent of climate change?
The flood indications are we had approximately 23% oxygen. You expand the atmosphere, expand the globe, lose more of the atmosphere, we have a concentration down below 21%, and in some industrialized areas, more than that. With the influx of shortwave radiation, we have a new context introduced, and that is a context of free radicals. The shortwave radiation.
Free radicals, everybody! Free radicals for you, and free radicals for you! Radical. Free radical. Noun. A chemistry. An uncharged molecule, typically highly reactive and short-lived, having an unpaired valence electron. Okay. So notice it's an uncharged molecule, but it happens to have the free valence electron, i.e., it's not positive or negative, but it happens to have a free valence in the way the molecular structure of it is. One of those electrons just didn't find a friend, so it's really ready to grab onto whatever will decide, hey, let's hang out. Hydrogen would work perfectly. Anything with, maybe one spare valence spot to fill. Again, hydrogen being one of the best. Ooh, and what do we have a lot of in us? Ooh, yeah, hydrogen. We got a lot of that with us.
Particularly ultraviolet, that is now introduced into the atmosphere, charges particles. Those particles are assimilated into the organic chemistry. We assimilate many of those particles into our own system. Thus, we have mutational change, the introduction of cancer. Various diseases can be accounted for by the introduction.
Just want to shout out Dog Walker with the wonderful "Free the radicals now. They are innocent." I agree. Free the radicals!
Of free radicals alone. The food chain is compromised by the introduction of free radicals.
Loss of the ozone canopy is primarily due to the loss of strength in Earth's magnetic field. No, I think it was all those chlorofluorocarbons we were releasing for many, many decades, which happened to bond well with ozone. Which, let's look up what ozone is once again, just to make sure. Oh yeah, 3 molecules of oxygen together. Yeah. Ozone valence electron. Ozone has a total of 18 valence electrons because each oxygen atom contributes 6 valence electrons. There are 3 oxygen atoms in ozone molecule. Interesting. So then you get them there free radicals bonding to it, and suddenly the ozone ain't ozoning no more.
Even the genetic structure, including those of man, are compromised by the introduction of free radicals. No wonder we're in decay. But actually, all of this was out of God's mercy. For man, in his nature of discord, projection of discord in his thought process that can bring discord to physical elements and to living systems, has a life now that is shortened. That is in mercy to the rest of living systems. If man had been permitted to continue with this very imagination of his heart, thought process, only evil continually, multiplying on the face of the globe to the degree that we see today, we would have a discord far beyond the experience that you and I have academically monitored. So God, in mercy,
we academically monitored this, apparently. I didn't know it was part of that process. Okay.
has shortened the lifespan of man. Now we see it in discord and disarray. In this series of lectures, Creation and Symphony, the Model, we've watched as a perfectly orchestrated creation was compromised by the fall and then disturbed in great dimension at the time of the flood. But would it be consistent with this unique, loving Creator to leave the creation in disarray?
Carl, not a damn thing you've said has been consistent with anything. But go on. I know you're going to tell us about it. You're going to get on to your, oh, there's a paradise after all this, and, da-da-da, and then you need a savior, and da-da-da stuff. So, you're just going to give your everyone's evil bullshit that pisses me off. So let's just get to it.
I'd said earlier in this series that of all the gods introduced and conceived by the mind of man,
Yahweh is definitely one of the most stupid.
there was a natural, selfish tendency observed in everyone except one. But this God has not been introduced by the inventive process of man and his design.
Yes, this God is not selfish at all, yet simultaneously that deity and their followers demand that they get glory for what they've done. But they're not selfish at all. But, give God the glory. Y'all even listen to yourselves?
God has been introduced by revelation. And as we observe the cosmos, even in its compromised...
The creator of water? Creator of water. Water. Who has the creator of water button?
Form, we see that the first cause of this entire living system, supported by the space-time dimension, had to be the God of the Bible. And the God of the Bible actually gave himself so that we might be rescued. For those watching,
here it is. I called it. I fucking called it. Here comes the "you're all evil and you need saving" bullshit.
this tape, let me mention a concept.
Let me mention the concept to you, Carl. Eat a dick.
Those who are conservative and fundamental in interpretation have insisted that as Christ went to Calvary, the shedding of his blood was a literal experience. Why would it be necessary to shed his blood?
It isn't. It's called "Your Story is Stupid." Maybe read it again and think, does this make sense? No, makes no sense.
Literal blood. It has been found in biological and biomedical research in recent years and decades that living systems, particularly the DNA, give off a vibratory cycle. Now, that vibratory cycle that you and I now have is compromised. That vibratory cycle impinges on the catastrophe that we experienced in the fall, and all
I feel like he's going to go into some spirit science stuff and say Jews are from space next.
of creation was affected. Man, especially in his thought process and his moral values, has compromised that creation. In order to tune the creation and rectify even the internal thought process and introduce a possibility of new life, we must have a signal that corrects. Remember that the blood of Abel, in its cry, in its vibratory oscillation, was detected by the Creator. That's literal. If that is true,
Yes, the same creator who couldn't find Adam and Eve after they, munched down on some fruit that shouldn't have been there to begin with.
then as the Creator in the person of the Son,
I hear the blood vibrating, but I can't find these two people a few weeks back. Jesus.
shed his physical blood, which was perfect in its oscillatory cycle. That provides a basis, when applied, for all the creation to be restored. The Scripture states in the book of 2 Peter that there will be a time in the future when righteousness will even dwell in the heavens. They will again be orchestrated. And in Hosea chapter 2, the Scripture states that in that day, God will hear the heavens will monitor the earth will monitor the heavens, the
NSA will monitor all our email, the CIA will monitor the Soviets will monitor West Berlin, and then the Hovend will be born. Hovend.
monitor the corn, the oil, and the wine. Thus all living systems will be harmonic again, and harmonic in
Yep, corn, oil, and wine. Those are everything needed for the universe to keep on going.
every single detail.
That's why Australia attacked us in the 70s. I took boomerang shrapnel in my head. People say it didn't happen. I know it did. That leads me to something completely unrelated, is that they never actually follow that plot line in the Grand Theft Auto series. Like in the 3D universe, the Australian-American War happened, and they just never address it. It's kind of funny.
That's the promise of a creator who cares about his creation. Well, we've torn it up. Now let's put it back together.
Okay, we're done with the days of peg leg. I think this is the last of the videos in this. Yep, here we go. We got another 20-minute video left. Creation of Symphony, the model of our 10, the last days. These are the last days of this series. Sorry. Oh man, this is just going to get stupider and stupider. But hey, at least we'll be done with the model, and then we can continue the rest of the Creation and Symphony series. Maybe after a couple of weeks break.
Well, we've torn it up. Now let's put it back together. I'm going to venture into eschatology and prophecy.
Please don't. I don't care. I don't think you this is something that happens too, is that like people do not understand when I say I don't care, the level of I don't care that I have for whatever they're about to say. They either tell me anyway, or they take it as a slight against everything that they hold dear. You know, some shitty band they got into, or some flavor of the week game, or, you know, anime or something. And just being like, I don't care. And people take offense like you just slaughtered a puppy. It's like, what? No, I just don't give a shit. Like what you want. Care about what you want. I just don't care. People are weird, man.
I have indicated previously that all this model is tentative and preliminary because my observation...
Well, they all have to emulate the glorious styles of 1947. Yes. The only problem is they don't know how to do it right because they're all fucking morons. So they instead come off looking like fucking monsters.
And the observations of the consultants involved in this research would certainly be compromised. But the model is consistent. Now,
with itself, it's not consistent with reality. Trying to claim that your model is valid because it's self-consistent does not accuracy determine. Yay. Yay.
When we get into eschatology, I'm aware that there are various individuals watching this series who may differ to one degree or another about what the future holds, even those who firmly believe the biblical record. For some, what I'm going to say, this will be interpreted as a phase-in for the eternal ages. For others, there will be an interpretation of a literal period of tribulation. For some, there will be a premillennial. For some, a postmillennial return, as there is a phase for God to restore the creation.
Well, we know one of those didn't happen. Never happens. Face it, you're getting stood up. Your Jesus is never coming back. All right? Not going to happen.
And for God in the second person of the Trinity to rule and reign. But let me approach this.
Find me the Trinity in the Bible. Do it.
No matter how you interpret this, and you certainly have that prerogative, let me approach this as if all of these increments are literal, and we will see either way, no matter how you interpret it, as literal increments, as a phase-in to the eternal ages, or as a variant millennial reign. Either way, you'll be satisfied that the Creator is going to return and rectify all that we've damaged.
Press X to doubt. Come on, give me the X's in the chat, everyone. X to doubt.
We call this the tribulation globe. A number of things are occurring. Beginning here, we have our current lines of electromagnetic energy of the earth that are loosened and disturbed. They're not pinched at all. If we are to have a time in the future when the lion and the lamb will lie down together, and the child will play on the den of the asp and the cockatrice, if we're to have a time in the future when a man will live out his full age and his family will enjoy their own vines and fig trees, then we...
Oh, yeah. There you go. Any of you with kids, go and say, hey, guess what? You got a vine and a fig tree. There's your birthday. They're going to look at you and be like, motherfucker, where the hell's my Xbox? It might have sounded nice to goat herders 3 and 4,000 years ago, but not now, buddy.
We must have a restoration of the magnetic field.
Or hell, even, 1 to 2,000 years ago. I'm talking about New Testament people as well, and those they're Christians.
At the Creation Evidences Museum, we have simulated what the world was like before the global flood, and the results have been very encouraging.
Ah, yes, Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, leaf be upon you all. More hen.
As I'll show you momentarily. But in order to get those results, we had to strengthen the magnetic field at the right Hertz level. So there needs to be a mechanism.
At the right Hertz level, Carl, that's frequency, not level. Unless you want to take a higher frequency as a higher level of Hertz, which I guess works, but that's not the way people talk about frequency. Do you even know what the words you're saying mean? Like, even cursory. Please, Carl, say something that is actually a reasonable sentence. Just one. Just one, and I'll feel like I've not wasted my day.
In the creation model and in the biblical record to strengthen that magnetic field. That's called the translation of the saints. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. The word twinkling there is the word ripito in the Greek. That word ripito means a flashing detectable to the eye. Imagine, if you will, the saints and children of the world at the moment an Antichrist is prepared to take over, being translated away as Christ comes into the air. At this moment, his feet do not touch the globe, but he comes into the air, and the trump shall sound, the dead in Christ shall be raised first, then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. As the Redeemer, Creator.
Nah, I'd rather just be around some people who are all right. Maybe not a bunch of people who, can't take a joke. A bunch of people who think everything they feel is the supreme order of the universe, who can understand that not everyone likes the same things, I don't need to be around no freaking zombie Jesus all the time. Sounds pretty boring. Honestly, dude doesn't sound like much of a fun guy. Sounds kind of like a dick, to be honest.
Comes into the atmosphere for the translation. You have a radiant mid-spectral energy, but an energy that is...
Oh, yeah, Tyler, that one goes back forever. Yeah, evidences. Although, you'll notice, let me scroll down, there you go. They actually titled the channel Creation Evidence Museum. So I found that interesting. And sometimes Carl will say, I think he said it in more recent things, he actually has corrected himself to be evidence instead of evidences. I could be misremembering that.
Consistent with his own creation, with its own vibratory cycle, so the bodies of the dead can be resurrected. And so the...
But, Christianity isn't a death cult.
Spirits of the living that know him can be quickened. Thus we have a glorious enterprise. Now, we're caught away. On the earth, it's again turned over to man. The age of the Antichrist. The fullness of time, fullness of the Gentiles be brought in. Man again, with a globe already in disturbance, is minus the restraint of the Christian community.
Yeah, because your God clearly doesn't give a flying fuck. It's funny. They're just like, I'm just going to let him do whatever. And then, 1,000 years later, come back and kick him to the curb. Just because. So stupid. Like Lord of the Rings, Frodo and his friends just hung around the bar getting drunk for 6 months and then decided to take the ring somewhere. No. You got to act as soon as the threat's there. That's how this works.
Minus the
Luke Skywalker just dicked around on Tatooine for another 2 seasons, then went off to the Imperial Academy. All the while, R2 and 3PO just chilling there. Old Ben never getting that message. Yeah. Doesn't make for a good story.
Restraint of little children. Thus again, the very imagination of his heart will be evil only continually. And again, it is stated in the book of Revelation that he will attempt to actually destroy the earth. So we have an increase in the convolution of his own thought process and the maturing of the Chernobyl that was begun at the flood, expanded the globe in the days of Peleg. Now we have another activity occurring.
This man stopped saying Chernobyl. Please, you have no right to speak the name of that place.
An earthquake, such as the world has never known, violently shaking the earth. Disruptions which indicate that thermal energy and tremendous amounts of magmatic fluids and radioactive disturbance has been expunged out of the earth. Did you get that? Material that will bring blighting boils, radiation, expunged out of the earth from an earthquake that...
What was that effect?
Expunged out of the earth from an...
And it goes silent for that moment. It's been doing this these last few videos, like the little audio drops, but just that shaking.
Earthquake. That is so violent, there's never been one.
And yes, regarding the Lord of the Rings thing, I've never actually read them, nor did I only watch the first movie. I'm going to be honest, not too into Lord of the Rings. It's got cool elements. I'm sure it's a cool story, but because every piece of fantasy is based on it, basically, it makes it so generic to me. It sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons story that I can't get as into it. And I'm not really a big fan of that type of high fantasy anyway. So I'm not too familiar with the world and stuff. So I thought there might be a bit of a joke there, and that, yeah, they did sit around forever. Maybe I'd already heard the details on that. I don't know. So hence why I went with the Star Wars analogy. I don't know. This whole stream is a disaster.
Unlike it before. That does a number of things. As that earthquake occurs and tremendous volcanic activity occurs, earthquake shaking the entire globe, more...
I was thinking that too. Why is the magma going down? See it coming out of Africa right there?
Violent even than the earthquakes at the time of the flood and in the days of Peleg, when mountain ridges were thrown upon themselves and mountains were elevated. Now we have an occurrence, the shaking of the globe, the heating of the waters. So we have had a strengthening of this electromagnetic field. As these waters are heated and these radioactive materials are giving off their violent radiation, you
had to think of what words to say there.
You have a canopy taking place again. You have the electromagnetic field strengthened. Now you have the waters forming into a canopy. Now, but those waters need to be purged. In prophecy, there's an account that there will be a time in the future when hailstones will fall globally out of the skies, hailstones the weight of a talent, approximately 100 pounds. In order to get hailstones of any size, you need strong electromagnetic energy. You need nuclei of dust particles. We've had the nuclei provided by the earthquake and volcanic eruptions. We have now the tremendous amount of electromagnetic energy. So it purges itself with these tremendous hailstones. That means that once this is all precipitated out, the dust particles are gone. The radioactive atmospheric particles are now brought back and assimilated into the waters of the...
Tyler, this is tribulation and rapture garbage we're in now, hence the cracks in Africa and all this shit he's talking about. See, the video's titled Part 10, The Last Days.
Earth. some on the land of the earth as well. You find many of those waters turned to blood. You find at least half the population of the globe destroyed. That certainly is accountable. Watch this.
AJ, as soon as this video is done, I'm done with this whole thing. So had it been sooner in the video, yeah, we'd pop you in. But right now, I just want to get this thing wrapped up. We do need to stream together again real soon, though.
As these hot waters evaporate and recondense into a canopy, it is not now a firmament, but it's a canopy.
Now, I have seen the first Lord of the Rings film. Went with my girlfriend back in high school to watch it. And I hate to say, was kind of bored out of my mind. Just couldn't get into it. I'm sorry. It's a matter of it simply being what every piece of fantasy is based off of. It makes it inherently generic to me. Just my whole ability to go into it is not the same as everyone else. Just can't get into it. They're not bad at all. I can't be that guy.
And they're purged and cleansed. Something is happening on the earth. The earth has been shaken out of its place. Many of the magmatic materials have been expunged so that you now have gaps.
Yeah, exactly. But since I was exposed to Dungeons and Dragons type stuff before properly Lord of the Rings content, my perspective is shifted, and it can't be unlearned that way. And I hate to use that kind of phrasing, but it truly can't, is that everything in it sounds like it's a Dungeons and Dragons thing, even though it's the other way around. It's like when you hear a song that's actually like a cover of another song, and the version you heard always sounds like the real version versus the original. You know, you can never unhear, you know, try as you might, the main version, the first one you heard will always be that main version to you. It's, yeah.
Inside the internal structure of the earth, which means that the earth, to some degree, will shrink. How do we know that's the case? Because the biblical...
AJ, depending on what you got in mind, I'm game.
Record says that during that time, every island will flee away. In order for that to occur in a physical dimension, after you've actually lowered the water table of the earth and the surface of the earth by evaporating some waters, in order for the islands to flee away, they have to simply be submerged in water. That means you again will have a collapse of the globe to some degree.
So, Carl, a collapse of the planet will cause the islands to sink into the... what? Carl, buddy. The islands... Yeah, I'm imagining islands freaking floating out of the ocean, like some Sonic and Knuckles shit. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking of. And even if I grant these stories and just go with the flow, I still come up with something completely different from what Carl does.
I recently heard that some geophysicists are saying that the continents of the earth are already beginning to collapse. That means that once you get a globe that shrinks in diameter, you pull back the atmospheric gases, you double the atmospheric pressure. You have, in the latter part of this tribulation period, double the atmospheric pressure, filter the ultraviolet radiation, strengthen the magnetic field. No wonder individuals being blighted by the contamination of these expunged materials. No wonder these individuals will cry to die, and many of them cannot die, because you have more imbibing of oxygen, fewer free radicals, stronger electromagnetic field, living system.
Can't tolerate this. Carl said fewer free radicals. He wishes to imprison the radicals again. They did nothing wrong.
Systems now will have a greater degree of the original design
So that was an inside job.
for their support, which brings us to the millennial globe. Some theologians see this as a phase into the eternal states. Others see it as a literal 1,000-year millennial reign. Either way, with the return of Christ and the saints in glory, their energy.
Oh, see, there's that glory word. You know, the word that you said that the idea that you said that your deity doesn't care about.
Coming through this area just above the earth with the strengthened magnetic field, with the pure water or purified water in place. Remember, consistent with the creation model. On day number 1 of creation, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters and got everything in place. On day number 2, God said, let there be a firmament. It simply took His energy in addition to what was in place to produce the firmament. Consistent with that is this creation in symphony model, where the return of Christ and the saints in resplendent glory, that energy, as we come through the atmosphere, holds the potential to crystallize that water and make it a firmament again.
Note to self, Carl just said that re-entering the atmosphere will crystallize water. I don't think it will.
Therefore, in this millennial scene, we have dinosaurs flourishing again. We have the lion and the lamb lying together. We have the Lamb of Calvary expressed as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, ruling and reigning over all the earth, even in its sinful context. We have the continents fitting back together again, so that an highway can lead to Jerusalem from anywhere on the planet. We have the interconnection of the continental structure.
You know, you'd think if that city was so important to the universe, it'd be like, you know, New York or something. It wouldn't be, well, what it is. And in case you just heard a little meow come out of nowhere, Dwayna decided to pop in and say hi. So she's here. The bigger of the kitties. Because, you know, Kit ran off. We still ain't seen hide nor hair of her. Dwayna is the bigger one, and Cormier is the tiny one. She was definitely the runt of her litter.
Again, and that's the 35th chapter of the book of Isaiah. We have a child playing on the den of the asp and the cockatrice. Now, is that possible? What is an asp or a cockatrice?
I mean, I fought both of them in Final Fantasy.
Those are very poisonous, toxic snakes. At the Creation Evidences Museum, we have simulated this context in the world's first hyperbaric biosphere. We've doubled the atmospheric pressure. We've increased...
Wait. Is this man putting poisonous snakes inside of hyperbaric chambers? I don't think this is going to end well for you, buddy.
The electromagnetic field. We've dominated with a pink glow of light. We have filtered out ultraviolet radiation. We've increased the carbon dioxide and increased the level of oxygen. What have the results been? 3 in particular. We have doubled the growth rate of fish in a prescribed period of time. That means cellular preservation and cellular mitosis. Now that's incredible. This has applications in the space program, applications in biological medical research. We have doubled the growth rate of fish. That means we have preserved the cells they have, yet they have had mitosis and maturing of other cells. If we could preserve our cells or decrease the rate at which we're losing them, our lives would be entirely different. Secondly, with fruit flies, Drosophila melanogaster, standard fruit flies, we have actually extended their lifespan beyond that which the universities have accomplished in 3,000 successive generations of study. We've increased the lifespan of the fruit fly. Most dramatically, we have copperhead snakes in the biosphere, Echidrodon contortrix. We have actually altered their venom at the molecular level just by having them in the biosphere.
Well, that is traditionally where venoms get altered, is in the molecules that make them up. That's kind of how chemistry works. Come on.
An independent lab in Dallas was very excited when they used a scanning electron microscope, analyzed the venom, asked me to come to the lab and see the results. The standard snake venom is spaghetti-like in orientation, gnarled. Some of you in microbiological research will recognize that it's sulfide bondings primarily that cause this long, complicated chain of proteins, being the most complicated protein structure in all of biological nature.
Citation needed. And did you learn all of that on your own by yourself?
To bond artificially sulfide bondings. Apparently, we have neutralized or eliminated those artificial toxic sulfide bondings so that the structure is actually three-dimensional, organized like a honeycomb. We have actually altered snake venom at the molecular level just by putting it there.
Okay.
There are cancer research institutes in California and Oklahoma using snake venom with a remarkable rate for cancer cure. I'm not suggesting we know what's going on, but those institutions simply strain the snake venom. I think we have a better way of actually altering the molecular structure and neutralizing the sulfide bondings. Therefore, during this millennial time, the child can play on the den of the asp and the cockatrice without the toxicity that he would experience today. Finally.
This goes as a great citation of this weird duality that creationists have, where they'll try to look for all these scientific things that'll corroborate, this and that in their story, be it historical or, predictive. Yet when it comes down to trying to pinpoint scientific constructs on things like the sin concept, their deity in and of themselves, etc., they just it's all magic. It's never just magic until it needs to be just magic. It's always funny how that is. Having your cake and eating it too right there.
Whether this is a phase in to the eternal age, or whether after the millennium we have a judgment of God and then a remaking of the entire creation, either way, it comes to the final disposition consistent with the design of the Creator and consistent with the creation and symphony model that we've discussed together. In Hosea, it's stated that when He remakes everything new, God will hear the heavens.
That's just what the video decided to do right there, by the way.
The heavens will hear and monitor the earth. The earth will monitor the heavens. The earth will monitor the corn, the oil, and the wine. And Peter said, at that time, when God remakes the heavens, reorchestrates everything, righteousness will dwell in the heavens. That's an awesome statement. That means that again, that which would benefit man would be at His disposal. That means the entire creation will be orchestrated.
Like that black hole hanging out over there. Just right there. Just black hole just chilling like, what up? I'm going to suck up the sun.
In Isaiah chapter 35, it is stated that songs and everlasting joy will come in upon the heads of the inhabitants of the earth. That's consistent with the tenets of this creation model, that when the canopy is in place and the crystalline firmament is reenacted, you can again hear some of the melodies of heaven, or at least feel them subliminally. Pythagoras stated,
whenever I get that feeling, I want subliminal healing from the sun. Oh no. Just being stupid. I'm so burnt out from this. I made a mistake.
That he could hear those celestial sounds. His students said they could not hear them but could feel them. We've lost more of the electromagnetic energy at this day. I doubt if we could do other except by special monitors such as have been done by NASA. But now we have an eternity envisioned when the physical descendants of Abraham will enjoy the earth with all its paradisal beauty. The spiritual seed of Abraham will enjoy the celestial city orbiting over the earth. We all will enjoy a perfectly balanced and orchestrated creation, harmonically attuned, all consistent with and a restoration of the original design and purpose of our Creator.
This is all so dumb. Why all the crap in the middle? Just hit the reset button and you're good to go. I mean, come the fuck on. From the moment of the fall concept, I had just been like, we're pretty early in this. I'm going to start the run again. And maybe not fuck it up this time. No, you got to have all this convoluted crap going on out of nowhere. And then this eventual reset hit after the fact. It's so stupid.
I trust that our examination of creation in Symphony, the model, has been an encouragement for you to see that properly interpreted science and biblical revelation are consistent with each other.
No, they're not.
I trust that you have seen that, consistent with what we find in the cosmos and in our personal experience, there is one God.
No, I haven't. Nothing you said here has convinced me of anything other than you are seriously tripping balls.
And only one. I trust you have seen that the data explored lead us to recognize that the basis for this restoration was that the Creator manifested Himself and sacrificed Himself
to Himself for the crime, or as an atonement for a crime He convicted us of, allowed to happen, and as a way of a loophole for a punishment that He condones, He created for us, and yet simultaneously doesn't want us to go to, but it comes with terms attached, hidden fees, and all that shit. Come on.
Not as other religions suggest in a murderous, sensual experience, but He uniquely sacrificed Himself for the benefit of all the creation, and especially man.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have a real shitty weekend. Be back to rule over the universe forever. Jesus. Yeah, real big sacrifice there.
Made in His image. In Colossians chapter 1, all things were made by Him, Christ, the materialization of Creator.
And somewhere in the early parts of the book of Chris, it says, you're a dumbass, so I win.
All things were made by Him. By Him all things consist. That means that they're held together by Him. Physicists are at a loss to explain why the electron doesn't collapse in on the nucleus. Well, Scripture states that all things consist by Him, are held together by Him. His energy holds them together.
The electron doesn't collapse because Jesus is holding up. Film at 11, everybody. Fucking hell.
Then, all things will be restored by Him. There is hope because the Creator is who He is.
This video set has a companion series, Creation in Symphony.
Does it tell us how much it costs? Because I want to know the price. Oh hell, this thing has 2 seconds left.
The Evidence.
Aww. Oh, it's over. It's over. I mean, yay, it's over. There we go. I didn't plan for it to become the thing that it did, but we went through the entire Creation and Symphony, the model. This was one hell of a stream, and not in the fun way. This thing has been rough. But whatever, it's done. Thank you all for being here. If you haven't seen the first parts, go check them out. I'll have to make a dedicated playlist for this. But yeah, we're done here, and I think that's enough Carl Ball for a while. Might do some Hovland later. Might not. I don't know. I do have some Guild Wars to play. And fun fact on the Guild Wars update, I finished everything story related earlier this morning. I am current in the entire player story in Guild Wars 2. All 12 and a half years of it. I don't know what to do now. That isn't a much larger time sink in the game. But, that's neither here nor there. Y'all are awesome as always. Okay.